Hey people, Shinobi no Kami here. In this fanfic, most people believed the Yondaime to be Naruto's father, but they were wrong. His actual father had to watch as Kyuubi was sealed into his newborn son and sent into a world of hatred. And now, he wants vengeance. Check the description and give a sub to my thumbnail maker God Kage Theories. Hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and if you want to make suggestions or something else, tell me in the comment section. Now let's roll the intro. Chapter 46. In Sunagaku there had been much going on ever since the invasion. With the discovery of their fallen leader, the past Kage, there was much talk over what they should next. They had no leader and were unsure who would be his successor. Much discussion was going on over the events as well as what they should do next. Oto killed our leader and the invasion was a failure. We should ally ourselves with the Leaf. One of the councilmen said during a meeting taking place to some agreement from the others. The former Kage's body had been found with evidence that he had been murdered. Their vessel managed to defeat our own vessel, said an opposing councilman. If they have someone capable of defeating Shukaku, we cannot win against them, he said in a reasoning voice which had some agreeing with him. Watching the whole thing was Baki, who looked on wondering what was going to happen. There was much talk going on as to what they should do. Most of them were angry about the failed invasion and the death of the former Kage, but so far no one had been able to decide who should be the next ruler of Sand. Well, at this rate I think it's gonna snow before they decide what to do, said Kankuro dryly to his sister, the two walking throughout the village having left earlier. They had witnessed what was going on and growing tired of it left. It would seem that way, replied Tamari to him. Didn't think I'd see the day when our brother would be defeated though, Kankuro muttered under his breath. The blonde didn't say anything as the two Sand siblings continued walking. Elsewhere, seated on top of a building, was a young boy with red hair and green eyes. Strapped to his back was a large gourd filled with sand. The boy's eyes were closed, revealing his black eyelids, showing the constant insomnia that he had. He sat on the rooftop, his arms folded across his chest. He had heard the babbling of those fools, talking non-stop over the death of his father. They believed that sound had killed him, but in truth it was himself who did the killing blow, ending the man's life. He wasn't fulfilled with it though, and the next day when the invasion happened thought he could find his purpose for living. He fought against the last Uchiha, and although he was good in the end, he had one which he found to be disappointing, but then he felt the source of a great power from somewhere else. Determined to find out what it was, he went and engaged in a battle with someone who wasn't very different from himself. A vessel, just like him but different as well. That person, although he was a vessel for the fox, didn't seem to harbor any feelings of hatred for the world like he did. They battled and in the end he had been defeated by him. Intrigued by how he was able to defeat him, he aided the boy in dealing with another foe before they went their separate ways. His words were stuck in his head. Was the true reason he lost because he fought for nothing? Was it possible for him, a vessel for a feared demonic beast, to be accepted? Oblivious to his surroundings, the boy didn't realize that time passed on and the sun set and the sky became filled with stars as he thought about all that had happened. He was surprised, however, when he saw his sensei appear in front of him and mention for him to come with him. Meanwhile, Naruto, Haku, and Tayuya were traveling on a road leading to one of the cities in the Land of Sound. The three walked side by side as they made their way. So why are we doing this again? Asked the redhead to them. Tayuya, you know why we were assigned this mission, responded Haku to her, his sword strapped to his back. The three had been assigned to go to the town of Shapai, which was one of the towns in Sound. Formerly it was under the control of Yuan Cho, but he had been killed by Orochimaru a couple of days ago for treachery during a meeting. A new ruler of Sha Pai was to be found, but Yuan Chao's second-in-command, a notorious ruthless man known as Dong Huo, had taken control of it and had made it into a fortified citadel holding all the citizens inside hostage, threatening to have his men kill them all if they didn't give in to his demands, which was rulership of Sha Pai and other things. Knowing that if he sent his men to take back the town it would be a disastrous with many lives lost, Orochimaru had given this mission to them. They were to infiltrate the town and assassinate Dong Huo. It would not be an easy mission as it was an A-ranked mission. I can't believe he sent only us to deal with this damn crap. I know we're good, but I don't know if we're that good. Said to Yuya as they continued walking. Otusan wouldn't have given us this mission if he didn't trust us and our abilities to Yuya, and a large force would be cumbersome. Naruto said to her. Plus I've heard he doesn't have anyone who's really strong under him, it's just that he has the civilians prisoner that makes him so dangerous as he will kill them all, men, women, and children if he has to. Haku replied as well. Hey! Shouted a voice up ahead, getting their attention. Where do you think you're going? The three looked ahead and saw two men standing over a peasant who was on the ground trembling in fear. The two had their weapons out. You know no one is allowed to leave the town under order of Lord Dong Huo. Said one with an iron club to him who was horrified. Perhaps you need to learn a lesson. Said one bringing his weapon up to bring down on him. But before he could he felt a sharp pain in his neck and fell to the ground dead with small needles stuck into his throat. The other man looked at his dead companion but was then met with a powerful punch knocking him unconscious. The peasant looked around and saw himself surrounded by three ninja. He looked up at his saviors as Naruto kneeled down beside him. Are you alright? Why you're ninjas? The man stuttered out. Please, you've got to help us, they are in the town, Dong Huo and his men, doing whatever they want and killing anyway that gets in their way. That monster killed my brother and kidnapped my wife. I attempted to escape to get help but those two men found me. Please, you must do something. He said, pleading with them. Don't worry, we'll help you, get somewhere safe. Naruto said to him. The man nodded and ran off and Naruto looked at his teammates. Looks like this is as serious as we thought. Let's go, he said to them and they ran towards the town. The three made their way and due to no guards at the gate they managed to sneak in easily and hide behind a building and saw what was happening. They saw a fat man wearing dark red clothing with a belt that had skulls on it and a hat to cover his head. He had a black beard and hair and had a sword strapped to his side. With him were many men who were assaulting the villagers and taking their possessions. 5 men were also in a kneeling position on their knees as they were being held down by some of his men. No, please my lord, have mercy. Said one man who had his wife taken away. Please don't take my wife. The fat man laughed and kicked him in the stomach and knocked him to the ground. You should consider yourself lucky to have such a beautiful wife, she'll do great in my harem. He said cruelly as he stroked the terrified woman's chin. Get that maggot out of my sight and put him in the dungeon. He ordered 2 of his men who dragged him off. That overgrown slug, muttered to Yuya as they looked on in disgust as they figured him to be Dong Huo. Take anything of valuable nature. They have, he barked, giving his men orders. Gold, money, jewelry, if it's valuable take it. Dong then turned his evil black eyes to the terrified villagers. If you value your worthless skins, I suggest you hand it over. The citizens could only comply or risk being killed. Haku watched on in disdain as there was no sense in this. They heard him speak again. And here's a lesson for anyone who thinks about opposing me. Dong Huo said and then mentioned to his men holding the 5 prisoners who then killed them much to the horror of the terrified villagers who could only watch. Remember, the fate of you miserable worms is in my hands, today I decided to be merciful. Better hope I stay in this mood. Huo laughed loudly and mentioned for his men to follow him to his mansion as they left with treasure in their arms and prisoners, some male some female, being led in chains. The 3 ninjas got out of their hiding spot and looked around after witnessing what had happened. Guys, it looks like this is as serious as Orochimaru-sama said it was. Said Naruto, getting nods from them. As Dong Huo lead his men up through the gate and into his arm, a lone figure stood at the door and watched as he brushed past him and made his way into the mansion. He ignored the laughter of the men as they dragged the terrified prisoners inside. For the men they would be put in the dungeon, for the women they would be forced to become part of his harem. The figure sighed. He had signed on as a mercenary and bodyguard for him not long ago, but the fact he had to serve under his slob of a man sickened him. And his men were cowards and bullies who used their strength in numbers to control the villagers. He needed some money, but the fact that he was stuck working for him insulted his pride. He had taken no part in pillaging the town of its wealth. He then suddenly felt something coming from his blade. He looked at it curiously and slowly unsheathed it. The blade, it was glowing, a light blue color. The only time it had done that was in that battle he was in weeks ago. It was interesting to say the least, cause when it did that it meant that. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard laughter. Gah ha ha ha, looks like we'll have enough for a feast tonight. Dong Huo said inside, laughing at the gold. The figure sheathed his weapon and rolled his eyes as he wondered why he took this job. As Naruto, Tayuya, and Haku walked around Sha Pai and noticed the condition it was in. No doubt due to what Dong Huo had done. None of the villagers seemed to take notice of them, not even caring that they were outsiders after what had happened to them. Gotta admit there's not a whole lot to this place, said Naruto as they looked around. It reminds me of Wave back when Gato was running it. Haku said as well. That bastard, I can't believe these people let him walk all over them. Muttered Tayuya as she saw a woman wept as her father was killed. Well, before we try anything, we need to get some info about him. We can't try to kill him unless we know what's going on, said Haku. Good idea, Haku, said Naruto, who then stopped. Let's eat here, maybe we'll get some info while we're at it. The three entered the restaurant and saw that it was empty, with only an old man who apparently owned the place inside behind a counter. He looked at them with a tired look in his eyes, but he had a smile on his face. Welcome, my name is Yan and welcome to the Sparrow's Nest. You're my first customers in quite a while, what can I get you? He said to them politely. The three ordered their meals and he went into the kitchen and later come out with their food and sat it on their table. Thanks, Yan, are you the only one here? Said Naruto as he paid him. That be true. The old man said, adjusting his glasses. My cooks have quit cause I am unable to pay them. You're my first customers ever since our former ruler died. That sucks, said Tayuya as she bit into a roll. This place is like a ghost town and you got no help whatsoever. Perhaps, but I don't blame them, times have been rough recently. Used to this place would be full and filled with joyful paper as it was a meeting place. Now ever since Dong Huo took control my business has plummeted. How did this happen? Asked Haku to him, who sighed and shook his head. When we heard that Yuan had been killed I thought he had been acting suspicious lately. We were supposed to get a new one, but before he arrived Dong Huo took control and proclaimed himself ruler. That man is a devil in human flesh if you asks me. He said in a hushed tone, explaining what had happened to Sha Pai. Yuan Cho was able to keep him in line, but now with no one to contain him he is free to do whatever he pleases. He has taken whatever he wants. Money, women, jewelry, anything he desires. All that have tried to defy him have been slaughtered by his men. That's awful, said Naruto. Yan nodded, but then the door to his restaurant opened and two men stepped in. The clothes they had on identified themselves as Dong Huo's men. Hey old timer, it's time to pay up, one of them said as they had a swagger in their steps. Yan sighed in resignation. Again, I just paid you yesterday, I don't have any money on me. Thanks to your lord my business has gone down the drain, he said as like everyone else in Sha Pai had all his valuable taken away. One of the men reached over and grabbed him by the shirt. You'd better watch what you say about Dong Huo-sama, you old geezer, or else you might find yourself in the dungeon. You need us for protection to make sure you stay living, you worthless pile of bones, he said and shoved him backwards. Haku glared at them with disgust in his eyes. We'll be back tomorrow, you better have some cash or else. The man's words were stopped when he noticed them. Hey, what are you three doing here? We're just here to eat, that's all, said Naruto, not wanting any trouble. Oh yeah, I haven't seen you three before. Where's your papers? Papers. All citizens must have papers that identify themselves, now where's yours? He demanded. We don't have any papers, Naruto replied. Oh yeah, well if you don't have any papers then it's the dungeon for ye. The man warned, threatening to them. Tayuya scowled and reached towards her flute, but Naruto stopped her and shook his head. This was their chance to get inside his home. Alright, we'll go with you, he said and stood up. The two were a bit surprised he gave up, but then laughed. I guess we were too tough for you stupid punks, now let's go. One of them ordered them. The three were lead out of the restaurant and taken to the mansion. Inside the mansion. More wine, shouted Dong Huo as he gulped down a cup of rice wine. A servant girl wearing a revealing outfit appeared and poured him more. "Ah, it's good to be a ruler," he said as he seated on his chair in the room. He also had a ring on his finger, one of his newest treasures that he had gotten, especially when you can do whatever you want and get away with it. He laughed as he bit into a mango and his men laughed as well. But one of them was silent, taking no part in their mirth. He sat in a chair and had his legs propped up on the table, appearing bored. "So, have you become ignorant to the fact that the ruler of Sound won't take this lightly?" he asked him, who scoffed. "That foolish snake wouldn't dare try to dispose of me, not as long as I have those worms under my control. Besides, if those who Yuan was talking to help me as well, I'll be the next Otokage," he said as he drank his wine and looked at him. "You don't seem to have any joy with what power and wealth you can get. All the gold, the women, the power to step on someone and crush them like an insect. My joy comes on the battlefield. I am a fighter and so far there is no one here to provide me with a decent challenge. I don't care for wealth or women," he said, not bothering to look at him. "HMPH, suit yourself," Dong Huo said and went to eat his meal when a guard approached him. "Your lordship, earlier today 3 people were thrown in the dungeon. They seem to be outsiders." "Outsiders, eh?" he said, interested. "Well, maybe I'll have a look at them, maybe they can provide some entertainment fit for a king." "In the dungeon? And this is gonna help us kill that fat bastard, how?" asked Yuya again as the 3 were in a cage being held up by a rope as they were in the air. They were in the dungeon and could see the prisoners, most of them who were innocent, in cells. Their weapons had been taken away as well. "Easy to Yuya, we're in right. This is all part of my plan," said Naruto to her. "If this is your idea of a plan, I'd hate to see what isn't," she said, annoyed at him. The 3 heard a door open and saw Dong Huo escorted by his guards enter the room and go up the stairs and come face to face to them. "So you're the outsiders? HMPH, you're not much to look at. I doubt you'll even scream before my men kill you," he said, not impressed. But his eyes then sought to Yuya and he grinned. "Ah, now aren't you a pretty thing? How'd you like to be my concubine?" Yuya made a disgusted face and looked like she was about to be sick. "I think I'd rather die," she said. "Ho. You got fire, I like that. Bring her to me, and you'd better come, girl, or my guards will kill your friends," he said, ordering his guards to bring the cage over. It was brought over and the door was opened. Yuya refused to move but heard Naruto. "Yuya, go with them, we'll get you later," he said, whispering in her ear, and reluctantly she went with them, although she didn't like it, but she knew he had a plan. "That's a good girl, come to daddy," Dong Huo said, laughing, and mentioned to his guards. "Get her some clothes, I want her ready for tonight's feast," he said, and turned to Naruto and Haku. "Be grateful, I might only take your fingers instead of your heads," he said, taunting them, and left, unaware of Naruto's murderous red eyes glaring a hole in his back. Later that night a feast was held in Dong Huo's mansion with his men and those in his favor attending. Prisoners were taken from the dungeon and executed for their amusement as scantily clad girls were forced to be there as well. For Yuya, she had never been so humiliated in all her life. She had a look of fury on her face due to the outfit she was forced to wear. If you want a visual as to what she's wearing, picture her in the slave Leia outfit. Her body was revealed, showing her belly and her legs, and she noticed the lecherous looks that some of Dong Huo's men gave her. She scowled as she saw him chomp onto a chicken leg and hoped he would choke on it. She was forced to stand next to him and she grimaced as she saw another prisoner brutally executed. "Soon you come to realize how wondrous I am," Dong Huo said, drunk, sneaking an arm around her waist, which revolted her. She hoped Naruto and Haku had an idea to get out of here. In their cell, Naruto and Haku watched on as they saw the guards leave, prepared to head up to the feast. Looking at one another, the 2 nodded in unison. "You sure this is gonna work?" Haku asked, and Naruto nodded his head. The 2 then began using their combined weight and began rocking the cage left and right, causing it to dangle in the air and making it move sideways. They continued doing so, using their momentum to tilt the cage near to the side. "Hey Naruto," asked Haku as they got closer but missed it. "Yeah, this is a good idea, but if we used too much momentum, wouldn't we overshoot the ledge and end up?" Crash. What Haku had been trying to say did happen as the 2 used too much and overshoot the ledge and crashed into the wall. The 2 were dazed and disoriented, but on the plus side, the bars had been knocked loose, freeing them. "See, worked just how I said it would," said Naruto, clearing the cobwebs. Haku didn't say anything, it was too busy seeing 4 Narutos to be able to. You get our weapons, and I'll free the prisoners. Naruto said to him, and he nodded, and the two split up. Naruto found the keys and opened the cells. Go, go, get out of here, he shouted to the prisoners who ran out of the dungeon, and he continued freeing the rest who ran for their lives. Naruto. He turned and saw Haku with his sword strapped to his back. Haku tossed him Kusanagi and Naruto caught it. Seeing that the prisoners were now freed, they headed out of the dungeon. As they made their way, they came across some guards. Haku activated an ice jutsu and froze them, trapping them, and the two continued their way. My lord, a wounded guard said to Dong Huo in the dining hall. The prisoners, they are escaping. What? He shouted in disbelief. Guards, kill those maggots, how dare they escape from their cells? He shouted as he could hear it. How dare they ruin his feast? He stood up and pulled out his serrated sword in fury. Yuya, seeing her chance to escape, grabbed a platter and dumping the contents smashed it over the head of her occupied guard, knocking him out. She then managed to slip away without anyone seeing her. A lone figure in the dining room looked up and reached towards his weapon. This might be interesting after all. In the halls there was a panic as the prisoners fled, trying to escape. They fought back against their captors, refusing to submit to them. Naruto cut down a foe as he mentioned for them to keep running, helping them escape. He wouldn't let them die, not on his watch, as he and Haku drove them back. Kill them all, shouted Dong Huo, cutting down a prisoner with his sword to his guards who didn't dare try to fail him. Suddenly he felt a presence behind him and he turned and saw a figure wearing a mask wielding a large zanbato. And what do you think you're trying to do, boy? He snarled at him. Haku glared at him behind the mask. For all the people you've killed and harmed in your reign of terror, I shall end your life this night. He vowed. Dong Huo growled. I may be fat, but I'm not incompetent like those fools. Die. He shouted and charged him, and the two engaged in a duel to the death. Naruto cut down another enemy when he saw someone charge him from behind wielding a spear. He cursed and attempted to move out of the way as he was too close. Suddenly something smashed against his head and the man fell down, knocked out. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw who did it. It's about time you decided to show up, you asshole, shouted to Yuya, having the most revealing outfit he had ever seen on. What took you and Femboy so long? You know what I had to go through. She snapped at him. Naruto didn't respond as he found himself liking what he saw. Hey, Naruto, she shouted at him, getting his attention. Quit staring and help me get out of here. Naruto shook his head and tossed to Yuya her flute. She played it and summoned her doki, and the three beasts attacked the guards. Where did you get the outfit? Asked Naruto to her as he dodged a swipe and punched an enemy. None of your damn business, that's where. She snapped as she ordered her summons to attack as the two worked together, defeating enemies. Naruto used a wind jutsu and blew some guards away. Yuya kicked one and then stomped on his throat with her foot, crushing his windpipe. Naruto saw three men approach, but his eyes widened in disbelief. The oblivious soldiers prepared to attack him, but suddenly a figure rushed past them and cut them down with his blade. They fell down and Naruto found himself face to face with him. He had black hair in a long ponytail and he wielded a nodashi that had blood on it. The blade also glowed blue. A smirk was on his face as the two looked at one another. I did not expect I would ever see you again after what happened in Konoha, he said to him. Muda, Naruto said, his voice full of venom as he glared at his hated nemesis. Haku avoided Huo's attacks as he was on the defensive. Despite his weight, the man was an expert swordsman, which had surprised Haku and kept him from going on the offensive. The two battled in the dining room, the only ones in it. I will use your head to drink wine out of, shouted Dong Huo, slashing at him. Haku deflected it with his own blade and attacked him, starting to drive him back. He managed to hit him in the shoulder, causing him to back up and reach at it. You'll pay for that, you wretched boy, Dong Huo warned him in anger. He attacked him and drove him back with his ferocity. Haku was backed into a table and the man went to cut him in the abdomen, and Haku leapt onto the table. Dong Huo brought his sword up and prepared to bring it down and cut him in half when Haku leapt over him and his blade cut the table in half. Before he could react, Haku slashed him across the back and into his spine as he landed behind him and then impaled him from behind and with a grimace pulled his zanbato out. Dream of wealth and power, fade, ing, he said before he fell on his stomach dead. Haku glared at the corpse. Your greed sickens me, I hope your death will be a symbol as to what will happen to those who abuse their power. He said and left the room. Naruto and Muta stared hard at one another, neither one making a move. I thought I had killed you in Konoha, I did not expect that you might live. And yet here you are. Muta Daidoji said to him, his blade drawn. Naruto glared hard at him. So you now work for anyone? I only worked for that slob cause I needed money, I suspect he is dead now. I was growing tired of working for him anyway and I probably would have killed him myself. I still remember my promise Muta, that I will kill you. Muta smirked. Would you care to try that right now? He said and held out his enchanted sword. Naruto looked at it. He knew from past experience how powerful it was, as it had nearly killed him. He did not know if he could beat him like this. He also heard Kyuubi growl in his head, the fox also remembering the sting of that enchanted blade which was designed to fight demons and vessels. An explosion rocked the mansion and before Naruto could recover, Muta laughed and then ran away, disappearing via a secret passageway. Naruto cursed his luck and saw Tayuya and Haku appear. He glared at the passageway and knew he could give chase, but he wasn't sure if he could beat him. Dong Huo is dead, Haku said to Naruto, who nodded as Shoppai was free from his tyranny. Come on, let's get out of here, said Tayuya, wearing a heavy robe to cover herself and carrying her ninja clothes in her arms. After the three left the mansion, they were met by the cheering citizens of Shoppai thanking them for saving them. Also, it was revealed that Yan had been chosen to be the next ruler of the town, the old man having been chosen by them as he had managed to rally the villagers to save their friends and family. With their mission complete, the three left Shoppai. But one thought was stuck in Naruto's head. Right now I am unable to defeat Muta due to his Nodashi, but that doesn't mean that I won't face him again one day. And when that day comes, Muta, you are mine. Filled with determination, Naruto headed back to Otogakure, hoping to find a way to defeat Muta Daidoji. As the night passed and dawn was ready to break in Shoppai, a figure emerged from a hidden hiding place in Dong Huo's mansion in the dining hall, which hadn't been cleaned up yet, and he went over to the dead man and kneeled beside him. He had been waiting for an opportunity to get it, and now his patience had paid off. You won't be needing this anymore, he said as he went to his right hand and pulled off a ring with an orange mandarin jewel in the center of it. The dead man having no clue of its true power that it possessed. He brought it up to his face and smiled as 4 other rings were on his hands. He had sensed the boy was here earlier but knew that the time wasn't right, but it soon would be. Another ring, another nail in the coffin, another shovel of dirt on the grave of Naruto Uzumaki. And with that he laughed evilly as he was one step closer to fulfilling his revenge. Chapter 47. The feminine-looking boy swung his Zanbato at his foe, who dodged it and slashed at him with his own weapon. The boy deflected it and went for his legs, swinging at them. His foe lifted his leg out of the way as the two fought one another. Their blades clashed against one another and the two engaged in a test of strength, with neither getting the edge. The feminine boy managed to win it and swung his blade in a decapitating motion, looking to take his head. The boy ducked and it hit a training dummy's head and beheaded it. Impressive, said a voice, and the two turned and looked at a long black-haired figure approaching them. You seem to have mastered your former master's blade quite well, Haku, said Orochimaru to Naruto and Haku. Haku bowed to him and the two boys put their weapons away. Otu-san, it is good to see you, Naruto said to him as they bowed respectfully to him. You two boys have learned the ways of the sword quite well, Orochimaru said to them. But remember, a weapon is only as good as the person who wields it. An expert with a kunai or a shuriken can easily defeat a novice with a katana. Keep that in mind as you continue your training. The two nodded in response. It had been a week since they ended Dong Huo's tyranny in Shoppai, and the two had been training along with Tayuya to hone their skills. The success of the A-class mission had put the three among the top of the genin teams for their ranking, but it was clear they were getting beyond that rank and near that of Chunin. They had also heard in Konoha that one of the Leaf, Shikamaru Nara, had been promoted to Chunin for his skill in the exams. Although all three had performed well in the exams, they didn't bother them, as after what had happened they doubt they would pick someone who attacked their home to become Chunin. You two along with Tayuya are assigned for the people of the future of sound. Orochimaru then turned to his son. Naruto, come with me. I wish to talk with you alone. Naruto nodded and saying bye to Haku went with him. Father and son walked side by side in the forest. As they walked, You do understand that as my heir a heavy burden shall be on your shoulders when you take my place as ruler, my son. Orochimaru asked him, and Naruto looked at him. But of course, blood alone does not make a ruler. Many once proud kingdoms fell into obscurity after their once great rulers had died, and incompetent descendants who believe they inherit their parents' skill take the throne. Naruto looked up at his father. So you say you wish to test me to make sure I am skilled enough to rule as ZODIVK? He asked him. That is correct. Think of the once great Yuan family, at the pinnacle of their might long before our time, and that of the ninja when the land was divided much like it is today. They were the mightiest clan in the land. You have been keeping up with your studies like I told you? He asked, and Naruto nodded. Yuan Shao, the last ruler of the Yuans, placed too much emphasis on his family name, as although he had some skill, his sons' squabbling and rivalry spelled their demise after he had died. He also believed that number wins battles, hence his crushing defeat at Guandu, where a force not even close to a third of his defeated his army. Naruto nodded as they continued walking. But I am not Yuan Shao, nor are you a son of the Yuan clan. So tell me, Naruto, what truly makes a ruler? Naruto thought hard about that and then looked at him. A ruler must be powerful but not cruel. He should command loyalty but should be loyal to those around him. He does not believe he alone makes the land. Those that serve him help him make the land. He listens to the advice of others and doesn't believe that his word is greater than those. He knows when to fight and when to defend. He puts his people before him and lets them know he cares about them, as without them he is nothing. He said, finishing as he looked at him. Orochimaru nodded. You have passed one of my tests, boy. I can tell by your answer that you shall be a worthy heir to Sound. He said, surprising him as he did not think that it was a test. Orochimaru then started to walk away but then stopped. But remember, you have many more tests to pass before I decide you are indeed worthy of ruling when my time has come. He said to him and walked away, leaving Naruto behind. Watching him go, Naruto clenched his hand into a fist, clutching it in determination. Father, I will prove to you that I am worthy of ruling Sound. At Konoha. Come back to Konoha, the idiot said. You'll be a great Hokage, the dumbass said. He didn't mention all the damn paperwork. Shouted Tsunade in anger as she couldn't even see past the stack of papers she had to do. The next time she saw Jiraiya, she would rip out his intestines and strangle him with them for making her come back and becoming Hokage. How the hell did Sarutobi manage to do all this? She said in disbelief over all the work she had to do. Her door opened and she looked up and saw her apprentice enter holding a large stack of paper in her arms. Tsunade snarled in anger at her and she wisely left the room before she killed her. Tsunade worked on a paper and grabbing a bottle of sake gulped it down. Clearly being Hokage was highly overrated. Plus she had to deal with the council and they were getting on her nerves. By they she meant Danzo and his lot, wanted revenge against Sound. She had managed to keep them in line, but earlier in the week they had made a Leaf Genin who competed in the exams Chunin, much to his annoyance, but to them it was a victory of sorts over Oto. They had been pestering her ever since, and to satisfy them a bit earlier today she had sent a 5-man team on a scouting mission near Oto. They wouldn't be heading too much into their land but just enough to satisfy them and see what was going on. Odds are they wouldn't find anything before they headed back to Konoha. Besides, she mused to herself as she downed another bottle. What could possibly happen between them? She glanced at the unfinished paperwork and she moaned and put her head down on the desk and hoped she would wake up from this terrible dream. Later that day, unaware to the Hokage, a group of Sound Nins were also heading towards on a routine scouting expedition to make sure no bandits were prowling around the land and attacking merchants. Naruto was in the lead, the leader of the group. And with him were his teammates and Kimimaro Kage, who it seemed was finally coming over his sickness. The four were running through the trees with the three in front, making sure they didn't go too fast for their other comrade. The four stopped at a branch and Kimimaro clutched his chest. You okay? Haku asked him. I'm fine, it's just due to my sickness I haven't gotten much exercise these past years. He responded, breathing heavily as there still was some traces of it in him. He took some of his medicine that he had and appeared to be better. Well, let's make sure you don't get lazy on us and hold us back. Yuya said with a smirk which the last Kage scowled at. Naruto, having seen Kimimaro in action before, knew she was treading on thin ice if he wasn't sick anymore. Come on, let's keep going, we're almost done with our job anyway and there appears to be no sign of any bandits or vagabonds. Naruto said to them all, and they continued keeping an eye out for any trouble. An half-hour later they all stood on the branches of a tree, apparently done with the mission. Well, that was uneventful. Yuya said dryly as she was bored. Not every mission has to have us fighting for our lives, Yuya. Haku said to her as he sat down. Makes things more interesting. She responded with a snort. Naruto chuckled when suddenly he thought he heard a voice from far away. Sending chakra to his ears, he concentrated and heard it again. The others noticed this and snapped to attention. What is it? Asked Kimimaro. I don't know, come on, let's find out. He said to them, and they got up and went towards the direction where the voice was coming from. They come upon 3 ninjas. One was a quiet boy with brown hair wearing darkened glasses. The second was a shy girl with midnight hair and violet eyes. And the third, who was the loudest of the group, was a boy with red markings on his face and a dog as his companion. Each had a Hittite 8 with the symbol of Konoha on it and were accompanied by an older woman who appeared to be a Jonin. Leaf Nins, spat Yuya in disgust. What are they doing here? Probably the same as us, scouting. Replied Haku, although his attention was on the girl as he knew who she was. We should kill them, they invade our territory. Kimimaro responded, frowning. Naruto shook his head. They mean no harm to us, they haven't done anything. Besides, by the look of it they appear to be heading back soon. He said, not wanting an unnecessary fight. Suddenly the boy with the dog called out ahead and 3 others appeared, which made Naruto's eyes widen in shock. One was a pink-haired girl with emerald eyes. The second was a boy with black hair and the symbol of the Uchiha on the black of his shirt. And the third had silver-gray hair and had part of his face covered with a mask. Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi. Naruto whispered as he saw his old team. He didn't think he would see his old team again. Come on, let's get the hell out of here, said Yuya, frowning, but Naruto stopped her. Wait, he said, stopping them. Let's see what they are doing here. His words confused them, but they followed him. Well, it looks like we can head back now, we've reached our destination, said Kakashi to the others as they had fulfilled their mission. Man, we should keep going. Hopefully we'll found some of those sound nins and kick their asses, said Kiba Inuzuka, wanting to continue. Our orders were clear, Kiba, we cannot disobey our Hokage's orders. Kurenai scolded her student. Why yeah, we should go back, if we go further we might get in trouble, said Hinata Hyuga. Sasuke had his arms folded across his chest. I doubt we would find anything if we do go on, I wonder what they are doing anyway. That's funny, said a voice, getting their attention. I was about to ask you the same question, Sasuke. The Leaf Nins turned around and saw a black-haired boy with blue eyes walking towards them. He glanced at them and smirked. Hey Sasuke, hey Kakashi, hey Sakura, long time no see. Sakura gasped in realization. Naruto, she said in disbelief that she was seeing him. Who else would I be? He responded with a grin. Team 7 was in shock as they saw their former teammate. The last time they had seen him was in Konoha at the invasion. Beside him were a boy and a red-haired girl. What? Don't I get a hello from my old teammates? He asked them as they were stunned. Kiba, however, growled. Why should we waste any time with you, you last-place traitor? He snapped as in his eyes Naruto was nothing but a traitor. Naruto smirked. You know, Kiba, I am stronger than you, and since you're in my home and land, I think the proper title would be Prince Naruto. Prince. He snapped angrily. Yeah, responded Naruto nonchalantly. After all, I am the son of the Otokage, that I guess that would make me a prince of sorts. Prince of Snakes would be more like it, snapped Kiba, who then turned his gaze to Haku and his weapon. Nice sword, are you using it to make up for something you don't have? Haku glared at him, but he turned his head and noticed that Hinata was blushing at seeing him again. Smiling, he winked at her, causing her face to become even redder, which didn't go unnoticed by Shino. Kiba glared at him. I think it's time to do away with you, you traitor, he shouted, and before the others could stop him he went to charge him, but a blade appeared out of nowhere pressed up against his neck. I wouldn't do that if I was you, warned a white-haired boy with the blade sticking out of his arm in front of him. Kimimaro then shoved him back to the rest of them and joined his teammates. Naruto, Sakura said quietly, which was unheard by the rest. So tell me, what are you guys doing in Oto? Naruto asked them again. Sasuke spoke up. We're on a scouting mission and we just so happened to bump into you, Dope, he said, calling him by the old nickname he gave him. Still carrying that pompous better than you attitude I see. Naruto said dryly to him. He then turned to Kakashi. It is good to see you guys though, this time on speaking terms at least. Kakashi stared hard at his former student. Used to, he was able to see Minato in him, but now that the genjutsu was gone he could only see his real father. Naruto, you've changed ever since what happened in Wave. Naruto nodded at him. Yeah, I guess learning you have a demon inside you and finding out who your true father is works sometimes. What are you doing now? You now Sarutobi is dead. Yeah, I know and I'll miss the old man. And I also miss Anko as well. But I don't miss being treated like I was a leper by some people. He said as he stared right at them. Naruto, Sakura spoke up suddenly surprising everyone. I don't hate you. I may have once hated you but I don't anymore. I want to think of you as a friend. I want to be your friend. She said finally saying what she had wanted to say for a long time, getting it off her chest. Naruto stared hard at her and slowly a smile found its way on his face. I am glad you don't hate me anymore Sakura, I also want to think and be your friend. But with the way our countries hate one another it might be tough doing so. Sakura smiled and it was the first real smile on her face in a long time. Sasuke frowned and stepped forward. Naruto, you know you are a part of Konoha, how could you attack it? Naruto scowled at him. 1. I'm a sound nin and 2. I didn't do anything during the invasion. He snapped angrily at him. Being a part of Konoha. After what I was put through by them I think I'd rather jump off a cliff than go back to being their scapegoat. You, mister. I'm a Uchiha so that makes me better than everyone else, actually think that if I go back there I'll be treated with kindness and respect. Next you're going to tell me that you're really a decent guy and have no super ego whatsoever. Naruto looked at them all. I'm happy where I am now, people don't hate me, I get treated with respect, I have friends, in a place where I don't have to worry about wondering if I'll see the next day. You guys may think I'm a leaf nin but I've shedded that part of my life away. From now on my home is sound. That's right, said Yuya putting her 2 cents in. We don't hate others just because they are different from us unlike you bastards, we have our faults sure, but at least we don't walk around with a stick shoved up our asses. Naruto please listen to us, said Sakura a pleading tone in her voice. If you come back to Konoha everything will change I promise. Me and others will vouch for you and make sure you don't get treated the way you were before by them. I want to believe you Sakura, I really do. But I can't go back there without thinking that nothing will change and I'll have to go through what I went through for 12 years again. I have a duty to my father, he wants to make me his heir to Oto and I can't leave my family the only one I have nor will I abandon my friends. He said and started to turn around and leave. Naruto. Kakashi called out to him. I'm sorry for what you've had to go through these past 12 years and most of it was unjust. But remember, your mother although she came from Whirlpool lived in Konoha and loved it with her heart. Your father although he's a changed man also lived in Konoha when he was your age as well. It is a part of you as sound as and we are a part of you as much as your friends and family are. Naruto stopped and turned to his head to look at them. Don't talk about my mother, my father, or my friends, especially when you are lying. He then dashed off and the others left as well. Sakura went to run after him but was stopped by Kakashi. Let him go, he appears angry, but I know on the inside a part of him was happy to see us. He then turned to the rest. Let's head back to Konoha. Naruto ran through the woods ignoring the calls of the others telling him to wait up. He had been dreading that moment ever since he went to Konoha for the exams. To meet his old teammates once again and it was something he had wished he didn't have to do. He continued running as fast as his feet could carry him, a frown on his stoic face on the outside. But on the inside his heart felt as if it was torn in two. In Fire Country. Clean up this room next. The former occupant is dead now so he won't be needing it. Ordered an Akatsuki agent to a strange ninja who wore an orange mask over his face and had brown hair. The two were at a secret base that Akatsuki had in Fire Country. Yes sir. Toby is a good boy sir, replied the strange ninja saluting him as he went inside. Although he was a subordinate of the Akatsuki member Zetsu, most in the organization including fellow agents looked down at Toby as a twit who could barely strap his sandals on. What he was doing as a subordinate to a cannibalistic plant ninja was anyone's guess. They bullied him but the unique ninja was always cheerful. Toby closed the door and began piling belongings of the former occupant into a bag. The person who lived here had been a powerful agent of the group and one of the more black-hearted ones, but he had died recently in a failed mission with 5 others. Humming to himself as he stuffed a skull with a candle on it, he suddenly heard something fall on the floor. "Hey," he said, and noticed something on the floor. "What's this?" He looked and saw a ring. "Ooh, shiny," he said, and picked it up and noticed it had a purple gem on it. Also a strange symbol was on it as well. Not bothering to ask who it was, Toby put it on his hand and it was a tight fit. Suddenly, before Toby could do anything, a purple light filled the room and Toby saw a battle going on. It was between 3 figures and suddenly one leapt up and fired a burst of energy from his rings down at them. But before it destroyed them, the black-haired one with 2 fox tails threw a ball of energy at him and overpowered his blast and consumed him. Toby then found himself back in the room. That's odd. Since when does Toby's mind play tricks on him? He said, and went to take the ring off, but it then glowed again and he saw another image. This time he was in the desert and he saw a man staring at his ring with a blue sapphire in it. But suddenly a slave appeared and knocked him out from behind. Toby, interested in what was happening, looked and the buffoon's eyes behind his mask widened when he recognized the slave who pulled the ring off and galloped away on a horse. Toby then found himself back in the room. "What's going on?" he asked, not understanding as he saw who the slave was. "I thought he died in Konoha." The purple light returned. "Oh, here Toby goes again," he said as he found himself in a different area. This time at a cave, and a hooded man given a ring and then killing the man who gave it to him. Next, he was at a deserted castle and saw the man again, this time knocking the head of a skeleton off and claiming another ring and putting it on his right hand. Then Toby found himself in a city and saw a wealthy man being hoisted in the air by that same cloaked man who demanded his ring with a jade gem in the center of it. Finally he was at a mansion's dining hall and saw him approach a dead man and pull off the ring on his hand. Another ring, another nail in the coffin, another shovel of dirt, on the grave of Naruto Uzumaki. The man then laughed evilly and threw back his hood, revealing his face. Toby then found himself back in the room and the ninja was startled at what he saw. "Kage, he still lives," he said, and suddenly an astral projection of the man appeared in front of him laughing. Toby shrieked in shock and stumbled backwards, but then heard an ominous voice. "Fear for your life, Toby," said a voice, and he turned his head and saw, no longer dressed in rags and a cloak, back from the dead Kage Sozano standing in the doorway, his soulless eyes piercing a hole in him. "I now lay claim to that which is mine," he said as he walked forward. Toby gulped nervously as he approached him. "Hello." Chapter 48. Ow. Not so hard. You're pulling Toby's fingers off, whined Toby the masked ninja in protest as the ring that was on his hand was being forcefully removed by the man in front of him, who was yanking quite painfully on it. He removed the ring off his finger and Toby clutched his hand in pain, the buffoon trying to soothe it. "Insolent toad," snarled Kage Sozano at him and brought the ring with the purple gem that had the symbol of Jashin on it to his face. Seeing that it was the real one, he put it on his left hand and looked at the 6 rings that he had, each one gleaming. He felt power surge through him as he had collected almost all of his missing rings. "Yes, I am nearly whole again," he said as he looked at his hands and saw that 2 were unaccounted for. "Just 2 rings elude my grasp, but they are out there somewhere. Close, very close, I can sense it. I can hear their calls of desire to be found. And Naruto Uzumaki shall rue the day I find him," he said with a snarl and raised one hand into a fist. "Show me the vessel of Kyuubi." A beam of energy came from his rings and transformed into an image of the boy, and he glared at it. "At Konoha he got the better of me due to the fact I underestimated him, but this time nothing shall stop me from slaying him." Toby, who was watching the spectacle, dared to open his mouth. "You lost at Konoha to him. Toby doesn't understand how you plan on beating him." Kage looked back at him and smirked evilly. "These rings are not mere trinkets, they are power itself. Blessed by Jashin himself, they are my strongest weapons. Unfortunately I was unable to learn their secrets before the battle in Konoha began, but I have not spent these last weeks doing nothing. During my travels I learned their secrets and the power they possess, increasing my chakra, power, and abilities. And once I have all 8 in my grasp I shall be unstoppable. Do you intend to return to AIM and tell the leader you're still alive?" He shook his head at that. "No, let the world continue to think that I am dead. My association with Akatsuki is done with anyway. My plans are not yet ready as I need to recover my remaining rings. And then my plans shall be put into motion. But first I need to discover the one hidden spot of armor that I can penetrate to defeat the fox. He said and pointed his rings at the image of Naruto. Show me his abilities. He ordered and the rings glowed again and showed a different image. The two watched as the rings showed his battles at the Chunin exams. His battle with Shinjiro, his duel to the death against Yuho, the three-way battle against Muta and Gaara, and the climax of their battle. As well as some of his latest battles. Kage stopped the image and put a hand to his chin. I must admit the boy is impressive. He has no flaws in his fighting style and knows how to improvise in battle and well versed in taijutsu and ninjutsu. He would be hard to defeat, but I suppose I should expect that from the vessel of the nine-tailed fox. But he has a weakness, perhaps not physically, but let us see what he is doing now. He brought both of his hands up and began chanting, and 6 beams of energy appeared and revealed him walking in a forest, and with him were 3 other people. The two watched the events that were happening unfold. In the woods of ZODIVK, Naruto Uzumaki was walking in the lead of the group, not saying a thing. Haku, Tayuya, and Kimimaro looked on with concern, wondering what was going on through his mind. Just an hour earlier he had encountered and talked with his old teammates from Konoha, Team 7, for the first time ever since their mission in Wave months ago. Although a part of him was glad to see them, the meeting had deteriorated into them arguing. It seemed as if they wanted him to come back to Konoha and make things the way they were before. The thought of that had made him angry, as before he had been nothing but a scapegoat in Konoha who was treated miserably on a regular basis and had no friends unless you counted a few people. He had wanted to leave that part of his life behind for good. The fact that now they wanted to help him when before they wouldn't even look at him made him upset. They claimed everything would be better, but how could he believe them? They were never there for him before, and now they wanted him back. He remembered what happened at the exams. When he revealed himself, the crowd responded by throwing garbage at him, just like when he was a kid, and calling for his death. If they wouldn't accept him for who he was, then he wouldn't accept them for what they were, a bunch of self-serving creeps who hate anything that's different than them. He sighed to himself and looked back at his companions and the way they come from. He had been dreading that moment when he would meet them, and that was the reason why. He went under a fake name at the exams so they wouldn't know who he really was. Naruto, Haku called out to him, and he turned his head to him. Although you look and appear to be fine, I can tell that in your heart you are suffering greatly over what has happened earlier. I do not know what has happened before in your past, but I can tell you are troubled by it. Kimimaro Kage said as well. Don't worry about what those morons think, we're your friends and we'll always stand by you no matter what. Tayuya said to him, and she put her hand on his shoulder. Naruto looked at them and slowly nodded. Thanks guys. You shouldn't be concerned with what other people think, we know the real you and that's all we need to know. Haku said to him. Naruto smiled and turned to the way they were coming from. Thanks, but there's something I have to do right now. To see how far I've come. Before they could ask him, he dashed off. Confused, they followed after him as they were going back the way they came. Naruto ran through the woods at a quick pace and was easily able to pick up the trail of the others. They weren't far from here, and he leapt into a tree and continued on his way. He crossed past the valley of the end and into Konoha territory. He saw them a half hour later. They were going at a slow pace after being done with their mission. He saw the person he wanted to see as well. The group from Konoha were heading back home at a slow pace through the forest. Done with their scouting mission, they were returning to Konoha. None of them spoke a word as they walked on after what happened earlier. Sakura Haruno looked at her sensei and her teammate as they continued walking. What had happened earlier didn't turn out the way she had hoped. On one hand, she finally told him what she had wanted to tell him for a long time, but on the other, it appeared the bonds between them couldn't be fixed. She went to speak to them when a voice called out, Sasuke. The group turned around and saw to their surprise Naruto standing on a tree branch behind them. His teammates were also standing on the branch as well. I challenge you to a fight. Do you accept? He said, looking down at Sasuke, who was stunned to see him. He leapt down from the tree in front of them. Sasuke looked at him as his expression soon changed to his regular face. Why are you doing this, Naruto? No reason, but let's see how far each of us has come. To see which one has become the stronger. Naruto said to him. I've got no reason to fight you, Naruto. Kiba then butted in. Yeah, if you want to fight someone, how about you face me? He said, but he was ignored. Come on Sasuke, you're always talking how strong you must get, so why not test your strength against mine to see who is the more powerful between us? Naruto said to him. Sasuke remained silent, wondering what his game was. Before they had sparred on a number of occasions when they were teammates, and why would he want to do this all of a sudden, especially after what had just happened between them earlier? He wasn't sure what he was up to. But his Uchiha pride got the better of him. Fine, I accept your challenge Naruto. Shall we fight here? He said, agreeing to it. No, there's a meadow land not far from here, we'll fight there. Naruto said to him. A short while later in a meadow, the two stared at one another as they faced another, prepared to do battle. Watching from the sides was their respective teammates and comrades. Come on Sasuke, kick that traitor's ass, shouted Kiba as encouragement to him, his dog Akamaru barking and agreeing with him. Don't bet on it, dog breath, watch Naruto beat the hell out of that punk, said to Yuya, who was holding Kusanagi as Naruto decided not to fight with it. Sakura was watching with a bit of concern on her face, wondering what was going to happen between them. Kakashi was watching as well, he too was also wondering just how far each had come. Both Naruto and Sasuke each got into their fighting stance and slowly began to circle one another, each waiting to see who would make the first move. The wind picked up, blowing their hair as you could feel the amount of tension building. Time seemed to slow down for them all as no words had been spoken between them. On a nearby tree, a leaf fell off a branch and crumbled onto the ground. In the blink of an eye, Naruto and Sasuke charged one another, Sasuke going for a blow to his head and Naruto aiming for his chest. The two contacted each other at the same time, but neither felt any pain. Sasuke went for a judo chop at his neck and Naruto ducked and did a thrust kick which he blocked, and the two backed away from one another. They charged again at blinding speed, exchanging and countering blows against one another. Sasuke did a roundhouse kick at him and Naruto blocked it by grabbing it and twisting it, getting a hiss of pain from him. The two were going at it with taijutsu as Naruto and Sasuke exchanged attacks, neither getting the advantage. Sasuke threw a powerful punch filled with chakra at him and Naruto barely managed to move his face in time as it just slightly hit him. He reached up towards his face and felt something. He looked at his fingers and saw small drops of blood on it. The blow, if it had made full contact, would have knocked him out. He was lucky he got away with a small cut. He glared at Sasuke, who had his trademark cocky smirk on his face. Sasuke deals the first damage of the fight, said Kakashi, watching on as he could tell that both had improved a lot. They were much faster and stronger than they had been before. Shino Aburame, who was watching the fight with as much interest as in stoic Aburame, could also notice that one of the sound nins, the one who had that giant blade, was standing next to his female teammate. The two weren't saying anything, although Hinata was twiddling her fingers together and trying hard to get rid of the pink on her face. The boy didn't say anything as he watched the fight, but he had a hint of a smile on his face. For Shino it was about as interesting to watch as the fight that was going on. First blood is mine, Sasuke said to him, thinking he had the psychological advantage over Naruto. Last blood is what counts the most in the end, Naruto said as the cut was healed by Kyuubi. The two charged again, and this time Sasuke pulled out a kunai and Naruto did the same. They blocked, countered, and parried each other's cuts and stabs, and the two soon came locked in a test of strength, pitting them against each other with the winner getting the advantage. Each one used all his might as their eyes meet, as they both had an iron will which would not be easily broken. The spectators looked on, wondering which one would crack and which one would get the advantage in the fight. Sasuke felt himself losing the contest as he was getting lower, with Naruto on top of him with the high ground as he was bending at the knees trying to fight him off. Naruto then unexpectedly brought his foot up and kicked him directly in the chest, with Sasuke unable to defend himself. The force of the kick knocked him backwards and staggering as well. He caught himself before he would fall and glared at Naruto. Naruto then made hand symbols and created 5 clones which charged him. Sasuke, having heard what would happen if he fought them in close range, quickly made hand symbols of his own and fired multi-fireballs at them, destroying them and keeping himself out of range of their sonic boom. He saw Naruto charging him out of the corner of his eye with a kunai in hand. He turned and ducked at the last instant, dropping low and then delivering a brutal kick to Naruto's jaw, sending him upwards into the air. Sasuke swiftly leapt up behind him ready to perform the Shishi Renden when suddenly he was blindsided by a hidden sixth clone that Naruto had made, cancelling the attack he was going to do. Naruto recovered in midair and the two landed on their fight and the two assumed their fighting position again. Naruto made another clone and the two fighting as one charged him. Sasuke despite his efforts was driven back by them when suddenly the clone dropped down on all fours leaving Naruto to use him as a springboard and deliver a brutal punch to his jaw knocking him on the ground. Sasuke got up but before he could recover the two charged him again and both dropped law and like he did before delivered a powerful kick sending him up in the air. The clone then launched Naruto in the air and Naruto did a flip kick shaped like a crescent moon onto his side sending him down to the ground with force. "Yeah. That's how it's done," shouted Yuya as the advantage was all his. Sakura watched on. She was amazed how strong her crush and former teammate had gotten. They had both gotten very strong. Sasuke struggled to his feet and glared at Naruto who had his arms folded across his chest and a smile on his face. "Ready to concede defeat?" Naruto asked him. Sasuke's eyes then turned red with a tome in them as he activated his Sharingan. "Never." He snarled and doing hand symbols took a deep breath and fired a fireball from his mouth. Naruto quickly did hand symbols of his own and activated a sound barrier to block it. Naruto did more hand symbols and fired a burst of sound bullets at him. Sasuke countered by making his own barrier. They were now going at it with ninjutsu. Sasuke made more hand symbols and let loose a stream of fire. Naruto avoided it and doing hand symbols of his own fired dozens of shurikens at him. Sasuke avoided them as well and the two charged one another. Each blocked and countered the other's blow. When Sasuke missed a punch, Naruto retaliated by quickly doing hand symbols and having a snake appear out of his arm and biting Sasuke who poofed into a log. He was then struck from behind at his legs and while he was vulnerable Sasuke grabbed his arms and put his foot on his back. The strain and force of the blow dropped him to one knee as Sasuke was attempting to break his arms. Naruto glanced his head back at Sasuke and thought for a moment he saw markings start to appear on his neck. That was quickly brushed aside due to the severe pain his arms and back were in and he gritted his teeth in pain. If he didn't find a way out of this Sasuke would snap his arms like they were twigs. Sasuke pressed down harder on his back continuing to add pressure to the move showing no signs of letting go unaware of the markings from the seal on his neck starting to reveal themselves. Kakashi also noticed this and thought about stepping in soon if it required him to do so. "Do you surrender, dope?" Sasuke asked him as he continued to put pressure. Naruto gritted his teeth and didn't answer as the pain on his arms was getting worse. "Don't make me break your arms, I will if I have to," he said warning him to surrender. Naruto suddenly managed to power out of the move. Sasuke looked on in disbelief as Naruto ignored the pain he was putting on him and managed to get off his knee and Sasuke's foot off his back. Sasuke clutched his arms even harder trying to regain control but Naruto if he felt the pain, he didn't show it. Naruto using nothing but instinct and guts suddenly leapt off his feet doing a somersault with his feet connecting squarely with Sasuke's face. The unexpected attack, perhaps a last-ditch effort by Naruto caused Sasuke to lose his grip on his arms as both boys were on the ground. Each got to his feet slowly but neither showed signs of backing down. Sasuke then clutched his hand and concentrated hard as sparks of electricity started to form around his arm. "It's time to end this, once and for all," he shouted as he was going for his best move. Markings were starting to show on his face as well. Naruto saw him and brought his hand forward and a ball of energy started to form in his hand. "My thoughts exactly," he said as he prepared his own move. Electricity formed around Sasuke's hand and his Sharingan was activated as he prepared to use it. A dark ball of energy was also forming in Naruto's hand as both boys were getting ready to unleash their most powerful move. Sasuke then charged him and fired the attack while Naruto threw his right at him. "Chidori! Kurai Rasengan!" They shouted and fired at the same time as their attacks meet. The two clashed in a tug of war with neither getting the advantage over the other. Each boy poured all he had into the attack to determine who would win. Then one of the moves started to gain the advantage over the other and push it back. It was Naruto, his attack was defeating Sasuke's. The Rasengan slowly overpowering the Chidori. Sasuke tried to fight back but it was no use as he was being defeated. Suddenly a bolt of lightning hit both attacks and dissipated both of them. The two looked on in confusion and saw who did it. That's enough. The contest is a draw, said Kakashi, his mask down and revealing his Sharingan eye, who had used his Raikiri to destroy both attacks. Naruto frowned at that while Sasuke was less than pleased. Why did you do that for sensei? This wasn't done. He shouted in anger that he interfered. Enough, Sasuke, calm down, the entire battle was pointless. You both are in equal strength from my point of view, he said, explaining it to them as he pulled his mask back up. There was no reason for you to interfere, Sasuke said as the markings were now visibly on his face. Geez, calm down, Sasuke, it's not like we were fighting to the death, Naruto said, not understanding what he was so mad about and what was up with the markings. Maybe for you, but what makes you think I wasn't? He snapped at him, causing Naruto to scowl at him. Enough, both of you, Kakashi said. It's time we head home. Naruto, I suppose you are going back to Sound. That's right, sorry, but I'm not going back to Konoha after what's happened. But, Sakura started to say but was waved away by Kakashi. Suit yourself, I am glad you have friends now and people you hold dear. But maybe one day you shall head back to Konoha. If you do, remember there are those who want to be your friend in Konoha. He said to him. Maybe, but I wouldn't bet on it, Naruto said to him. Sasuke was calming down and his markings had disappeared, but he couldn't help but believe that he was the weaker of the two. Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Kurenai, Sasuke, Sakura. Kakashi called out to them. It's time we head back to Konoha. Naruto mentioned for the others it was time to go back as well. Haku politely bowed to Hinata and joined up with him. Tayuya and Kimimaro also joined him as well, the redhead handing him his sword. Guys, let's head home, he said, but as they left he couldn't help but notice the look Sakura was giving him, as well as the looks Sasuke was giving him as well. Unaware to both of the groups they had been watched this entire time by two people from afar. Ah, now I see. How fitting that that would be his weakness, said Kage Sozano, grinning as now he knew what the weakness of Naruto was as the image faded. Toby looked at him confused. Huh, Toby didn't see anything. Do you have a rewind button on those rings? He asked, not understanding. Kage ignored him. His heart is his weakness. The fear that one day all he holds dear to him shall betray him and he will be alone once again. The desire to be accepted for who he is and to be friends with those he cares for. How fitting that the vessel of a evil demon greatest weakness is his heart. Toby then caught on. Toby sees. You believe that he fears that if he loses his friends and people's trust, his heart will break. Kage nodded and looked at his rings. Soon, very soon, not only shall I have my lost rings, but I shall watch as his heart beats for the last time. Once my plans are put into fruition they will grow and the world shall experience a dark night by which it has never seen before. Beware, Naruto Uzumaki, our fates have now been intertwined, we are destined to battle one final time. He then grabbed a knife and made a cut on his hand, spewing blood which fell to the floor. For I have written it, in blood. He then laughed maliciously and disappeared in a swirl of flames as he went to find his missing rings. Left inside the room, Toby kneeled and looked at the blood on the floor and noticed with interest that it had been made into two symbols. One the symbol of Jashin, and the other of a fox. The world shall experience a dark night by which it has never seen before. And written in blood, he said, his voice a different tone, now much more serious and threatening than before. Interesting, let's see what will happen if your plans are made. Chapter 49. In Konoha. Man, why did they select me to be Chunin? This is so troublesome, muttered a black-haired boy with his hair in a pineapple-shaped ponytail. He was lying on the grass looking up at the sky, wondering when his nap was going to kick in. He was wearing a vest that signified himself as a Chunin, although it wasn't something he really wanted. His mother had to drag him by the ear to the ceremony and his father didn't help him at all as he was lazier than he was, if that was possible. For Shikamaru Nara, the thought of being Chunin meant less time sleeping and playing mahjong and more time doing troublesome tasks, but here he was picked to be the one from the past exam to become Chunin. It wasn't something he wanted but had no choice. He disliked it, but his protests had fallen on deaf ears. He had won in his match at the beginning of the finals against Kintsuchi, but he didn't exactly leave in triumph. More like carried out in humiliation and agonizing pain. Couldn't they have picked someone else? Like Neji. Or Sasuke, he said as he hated the fact that he was now burdened with more responsibility. The men of the Nara clan were famous, or infamous if you ask the women, for their laziness, and Shikamaru was no exception. He didn't bother doing any work during the academy as it would require too much effort to pick up a pencil and write down the answers in his eyes. If it wasn't for his teacher and sensei disguising tests as games, he would have been held back. Shikamaru. He heard a voice call out and he saw his sensei walking forward. He grunted and stood up, showing respect to him. I figured I would find you here, said Asuma to him. We're going to do some training for the whole team in a little while, so I expect to see you in a half hour. Fine, I'll see you then, sensei, he said, and Asuma nodded and left. Well, so much for his nap. Knowing that if he tried to play hooky his mother would chew him out, Shikamaru grumbled and started to head towards the assigned training area, cursing the gods for him being picked. This is too trouble, huh? He started to mutter when he saw something that caught his eye. Something that was shining near a hole in a tree. The light caught his interest and he walked towards the tree and looked. Inside, it appeared that a bird was using the tree as its home, as he could see a nest inside. And in the nest was something shining. Normally he wouldn't have bothered with it, but he found himself reaching inside and picking it up. A ring, he said to himself, not understanding. It was indeed that. A gold ring with a white diamond gem in the center. It caught his attention as he stared at it, and the diamond gleamed. For some odd reason he could have sworn there was something unnatural about it. It looks like this would be worth a lot. I don't know anyone who lost any jewelry, although Ino would claim it was hers if I showed it to her. I doubt she's even seen it before. He muttered and he held it up to his face. I suppose I could give this to Mom, maybe she'll get off my back for once about me being lazy. Her and Dad's anniversary is coming up anyway. Dad's probably forgotten about it again, he said, and put it in his pant pocket and started to head to the training ground to meet up with the rest of Team 10. Unaware that he had just put a bullseye on himself. At the same time in Oto. Take this, shouted Zaku Abumi, and he fired a burst of wind at his training partner, the bandaged nin Dosu Kinuta. Dosu brought his hands up to defend himself and kept from being blown back by Zaku's powerful move. Zaku followed it up by throwing shuriken at him, and he brought up his melody arm and the ninja stars deflected off it. Dosu then charged him and threw a punch at him. Zaku moved out of the way but braced himself for the after effect. A loud ringing noise came into his ears, making him feel sick and causing him to throw up. Wiping the mucus off his mouth, he charged him and threw his own punch, which Dosu avoided and went to trip him up. Zaku leapt backwards and went to fire another burst of wind from his air cutters when Dosu did a series of hand symbols and clapped his hands together. The air around him seemed to ripple, and suddenly a loud popping noise was heard and he found himself being thrown back and landing on his back. What the hell was that? He shouted at him, who smirked beneath his outfit. A new move I've been working on, still needs some work though. Dosu answered with a chuckle. Zaku growled at him when something out of the corner of his eye caught his attention. Something was shining underneath a rock that he had landed nearby. Seeing it, he reached under and with a hard yank pulled it out. A smile grew on his face as he sat up. Holy cow, would you look at this? He said to his teammate, who looked at him confused and walked forward. A ring, he said, not understanding how he found it. Yeah, and look, the gold and the jewel on it are real. I bet this is worth a lot, he said, and showed him the golden ring which had a black onyx gem in the center of it. He put it on his left hand and saw that it fit him. Someone must have lost it, Dosu said as he looked at it, though he thought it doubtful. Who would lose a valuable ring in this part of the training grounds? A part of him though thought there was something unnatural about it. As if it was hiding something. Hey, too bad for them. Finders keepers, so it's mine now, Zaku said with a grin, standing up and admiring it. What neither Zaku or Shikamaru knew was that right now they were both in great danger. The two rings, sensing that the two didn't think that they were anything but a trinket, began making a silent call to those who would know their true power. And the call would be heard. In a cave somewhere, Kage Sosano was meditating, trying to locate his lost rings, when he felt the pull and call of them. Opening his eyes, he looked down at his other 6 rings, which were gleaming in unison, sensing them as well. He could sense it, the remaining final rings were nearby. Somewhere. 2 of them, they are nearby, I can hear them both. They have been found by some ignorant fools who do not know what they truly are. One's in Konoha, and the other's in Oto, he said, and stood up and concentrated, and he sensed their presence and the fools that dared to lay claim to them. How fitting that one of them would be in Oto, the home of his hated enemy. Once he had found and recovered the final 2 rings, he would be unstoppable. At long last the day I have waited for has come. Beware fox, for I shall soon be whole again. He shouted and exited the cave prepared to find his lost rings. Later that day Naruto and Haku stopped at a small restaurant in ZODIVK to get something to eat after they finished their training. Tayuya was with the rest of the Sound 4 on a mission they had been given the day before, so it was just them. The 2 were exhausted, having spent most of the day working on learning new jutsus and exercises. The 2 ordered their meals, a bowl of ramen each, and quietly ate. 2 days had passed ever since he had seen his former team from Konoha, and his fight with Sasuke. It played out kinda exactly like he thought it would, although a small part of him was glad to have seen them. And it seemed like his best friend was glad to have seen that Hyuga girl as well. His thoughts drifted to his fight with Sasuke. Sasuke had improved and he was good, but he in secret had been holding back a bit, but it seemed like Sasuke was fighting to the death, and what was up with those markings he saw during their fight. The last time he saw those was in the Forest of Death when Sasuke rudely attacked him after waking up when he was in the middle of saving his and Sakura's hides. "Hey Naruto," said a voice, and he opened his eyes and saw Zaku Abumi walking towards them. The boy took a seat next to them and ordered himself a bowl of ramen as well. "Hey Zaku, how you doing?" "Good, I just got done training with Dosu," he said as he paid for his food. He went to eat it when Naruto noticed something on his hand. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, and Zaku looked at his hand and smirked and showed the 2 of them the ring. "Like it, I found it earlier while I was training. No one's laying claim to it, so it's mine now," he said with a grin as he held up the ring, which had a black gem in the center. "It appears to be quite valuable, probably worth very much," Haku said, looking at it. "Yeah, I think in a few days I'll see how much it's worth, as the gold and the gem on it are real." Naruto was quiet as he looked at the ring. For some odd reason he could have sworn he had seen it before along with 7 other rings. "It looks just like that one guy's ring, but how? He's dead and there's no way the rings could have survived the blast I hit him with back in Konoha," he thought to himself, remembering what happened in Konoha and his battle. Zaku admired his ring and smirked. "I could also give it to Kin and see if she likes it." Naruto stared suspiciously at the ring as there was something about it he didn't like. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was Kyuubi, but he had a feeling that that ring was going to be nothing but trouble. And he hoped his instincts were wrong. Team 10, Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi and Shikamaru Nara were taking a break from their training in the woods outside of Konoha. Their sensei had gone back to get stuff, leaving them there to rest and regain their strength. "Aren't we done yet? I want to show Sasuke-kun this new perfume I got," whined Ino as she was wanting to get out of here. "Didn't you show him your new earrings the other day and he didn't say anything?" asked Choji, eating a large bag of barbecue chips, a light snack in his view. Ino huffed. "I should have known he doesn't like jewelry, but wait until he gets a whiff of my new perfume, unless Forehead Girl is trying to steal from me. It's not fair, I should have went with him on his mission the other day," she said with a frown, thinking her rival and at times best friend was putting the moves on her true love. "We'll be done when we are done," Shikamaru said, looking up at the clouds, a bored look on his face, his Chunin vest off and beside him. "Shikamaru, even as a Chunin you're still a bum. Seriously, how did you become Chunin since your mom had to drag you to the ceremony?" Ino snapped at him. "Call it a cruel prank by the heavens," he said dryly, and he hoped she would keep her yap shut while he attempted to take a nap. Suddenly he heard footsteps approaching. Frowning, thinking it was Asuma, he opened his eyes and sat up. The person wasn't his sensei, or if it was, he had gotten a serious makeover. "Can I help you?" he said, standing up as his teammates got up as well, wondering who on earth was this. The man had black hair and was tall, over 6 feet, and his eyes seemed to pierce right into them. They also noticed he had 6 rings on his hands which glowed. "Hey, tall, dark, and creepy. What do you want?" Ino snapped at him as he didn't say a thing. He did look kinda familiar though. "The ring," he said, and the 3 looked at each other confused. "I shall now take what you thief stole from me," he said at Shikamaru, who didn't understand. The man raised his hand into a fist and fired a burst of flames from one of his rings at them. They moved out of the way but barely avoided being scorched. "What the heck is he talking about?" shouted Choji, not understanding. "I don't." Then it hit Shikamaru as he remembered the ring that he had found. He wanted that. If you do not hand it over, I shall take it from your dead body after I send your souls to Jashin. The man said, and Shikamaru and Ino now remembered where they had seen him during the attack on Konoha. Look bub, we don't have any rings, so buzz off. Ino said, perhaps the dumbest thing she could have done, but then again she is a blonde. Choji, squash him. Choji did a series of hand symbols and transformed into a large human boulder and rolled after him. The man disappeared in a swirl of flames and reappeared elsewhere. Choji went to go after him again. Impudent fools. He snarled and fired a beam of energy from his rings at the meat tank. The beam stopped Choji in his tracks and reverted him back to his regular form and sent him crashing into a tree. The plump boy landed hard on his belly. Choji! Shouted Shikamaru, concerned for his friend as he was down and out. But before he could do anything, he too was struck by a beam of energy, sending him flying through the air and landing hard on his back next to Choji. An object also flew out of his pant pocket due to the force. Shikamaru! Ino shouted and went to her friends as they were both injured. She looked up at the man who fired a green beam of energy and she braced herself for the contact. But instead of hitting her, it hit the ring that fell out of Shikamaru's pocket and levitated it up from the ground and brought it to him and dropped into his hand. The man looked at the diamond ring and put it in his pocket and turned his attention to them as he had soundly crushed them with no effort. The three struggled to get up as Choji and Shikamaru were in no condition to fight. I shall now send you on a journey to the world beyond this. He said and prepared to kill them with one of his rings when he suddenly felt the call of the other ring. Feeling that it was close, he stopped and changed his mind. Today I shall spare you, I have more important matters to attend to. But next time I shall not be so merciful. He said and vanished within a swirl of flames, disappearing. Ino helped her teammates up as they needed medical attention and could only look on in shock and disbelief as that man who she thought had died had come back and easily defeated them. An hour later, the man found himself on the outskirts of ZODIVK, standing on a branch of a tree, and felt the call of the final missing ring. It was here, somewhere close. Naruto Uzumaki was meditating in the woods, or trying to at least, but his thoughts keep going back to what had happened earlier. That ring that Zaku had, he could have sworn that he had seen it before, back in Konoha during the climax of his fights. He had seen it along with 7 rings that madman he had faced used attempting to kill him. Along with some unexpected help in the form of a vessel of a sand demon, he had defeated him, and for all he knew he was 6 feet under somewhere. But that ring, unless he was mistaken, was the same one he had. How did it survive the jutsu he had used to defeat him? Did the other rings survive it as well? Then again, although it did look like it, Zaku didn't seem to be able to use it. Maybe he was just being paranoid. There were plenty of similar rings out there. Just so happened that they managed to look alike. Suddenly he heard a loud scream of pain and agony, jolting him out of his thoughts. He found out where the scream was coming from and quickly ran towards it. But as he ran towards it, he felt a dark presence near it as well that he hadn't felt ever since the attack on Konoha. And this time it felt even stronger. Zaku Abumi landed with a thud on the ground. He let out a scream of pain as a foot came down on his hand, breaking his wrist. Insolent little worm, you dare oppose me, his attacker said as he was breaking his arm. Zaku felt pain going through his arm as the person had brutally assaulted him. Appearing out of nowhere, he had attacked him, demanding the ring he had. Zaku tried to fight back, but he was no match for him. The figure snarled and reached down to his hand and forcefully pulled the ring off his hand. You shall pay the price for your stupidity, he said, and raised his foot up again, this time prepared to crush his neck with it. Leave him alone, shouted a voice, and he turned around and saw a pair of shuriken coming right at him. He moved out of the way and turned his attention to who threw them. Naruto saw who it was and his eyes widened in shock. You're alive, he said in shock and disbelief as standing before him was none other than Kage Sosano. Kage smirked at him. Did you really think that I had died, fool? I cannot be killed so easily. Jashin has given me his blessing and so I am here. What are you doing here? Naruto asked, wondering how he was still alive. I came to get what is rightfully mine. That boy is a thief that stole that which is not his. Oh, how I've waited so long for this. Can you imagine what I've went through to reclaim my rings after you defeated me and sent me to a sand-filled wasteland where I was made into a slave? I've spent these past months in hiding seeking my rings, and now fate has brought me here to you, my enemy, he said to him, and Naruto was on his guard. He could tell he wasn't here for just a talk. Fox, in Konoha you defeated me but don't think you can do it again. I have become more powerful than you could dare hope to imagine. Ever since my journey began I have increased my strength and chakra. So you want revenge for what I did to you? Kage smirked. That is correct, but you are just a part of what I have planned. But I shall repay you for what you did. I am no longer acting in the interests of my former master as he wanted you alive. I am no longer bound to him, I only serve myself and Jashin from here on. You may have grown stronger ever since our battle in Konoha, but I have learned the secrets of my rings. Naruto got himself into a fighting stance as he felt a battle was getting ready to happen. Kage seeing this grinned maliciously. I shall not fight you now, not here, but soon, very soon we shall have our destined battle against one another, and this time there shall be no escape for you. Naruto glared at him. I will defeat you, Kage. I don't care who you serve or how many rings you have or how powerful you've gotten. If we are destined to fight, then so be it, and this time I will make sure you are dead. He said in all seriousness to him, his eyes starting to turn red. Kage laughed and vanished, leaving Naruto by himself. Naruto glared at the spot he was at and went over and picked Zaku up as he needed to go to the hospital for his wounds. From now on it appeared he would have to be on guard 24/7 until the day came when he managed to defeat Kage Sosano and end it once and for all. In an unknown location far from Odo or Konoha, Kage Sosano appeared and looked up at the dark clouds. At long last the time has come, he said, and getting the 2 rings out he slowly put one on both hands. Above, a bolt of lightning erupted from the clouds as the wind picked up, growing stronger with each gust. Kage looked at his 8 rings, now having them all once again. The 8 rings gleamed in unison. He felt the exhilarating power surge through him as they granted him strength. He looked up at the sky as a dark aura surrounded him. It was time for his plan to begin. Unlike some followers of Jashin, he knew what it was his lord truly wanted, and should his plan succeed it would give him that. A plan that would give control of the land to his lord, and no one would be able to stop them. Naruto Uzumaki, I hope you and the rest of the land are ready. For the age of Jashin has began. Chapter 50. Naruto Uzumaki, clad only in a sleeveless shirt and a pair of shorts, had sweat covering his body as he laid on the bench and hoisted the 2 heavy weights in the air. Breathing to himself, he brought them down and then brought them back up, doing it a numerous amount of times. He wasn't using any chakra to lift them up as he was using his own strength to lift the items. He finished doing a set and dropped them to the floor and sat up. Grabbing a towel he began to wipe the sweat off and took a drink of water as he had been working out in his room. The door opened suddenly and he saw Haku enter the room and close it behind him. Haku looked at the weights and noticed that he was breathing hard. Naruto, you need to take a break, even vessels of 9-tailed foxes get tired. He said to him. Naruto shook his head. I need to get stronger. He said as he wasn't scrawny, he was well built and had been working out more often. In case you hadn't noticed, Haku, there's a lot of people who want to kill me. Haku nodded at him as 2 weeks ago Naruto had told him what had happened after taking Zaku Abumi to the hospital to heal his injuries, which included a broken wrist and injured ribs, his encounter with the seemingly brought back from the dead Kage Sosano who had vowed to kill him. Haku had wanted to tell the others, but Naruto had told him not to, as this was between him and Kage and he didn't want anyone involved. There's Kage, Muda, most of Konoha, and after our fight I think Sasuke is leaning towards that as well after how he glared at me. And who knows what that nut job Gaara is doing right now, so he's still on my list of people who want me dead. It might be easier to make a list of people who don't want to kill you. Haku said dryly to him. Naruto wasn't amused. You're a real help, but this is between me and him. I don't want to let anyone worry, especially to Yuya and Otusan. I don't want to think that I might lose someone I care about cause of me. Haku looked at him. You know that most of Odo would defend you with their lives, Naruto. If someone as much as sneezed on you, they would be willing to give their own lives up for you. I know I would. Naruto looked up at him. Haku was his best friend and willing to lay his life down for his. But he didn't like people to think he always needed protection. He had wanted this inevitable fight that would happen with the follower of Jashin to be one-on-one just between the two of them, but he doubted Kage wouldn't think about trying to harm those closest to him. If and when that fight came, Naruto wanted as little deaths as possible. At Konoha, Sakura Haruno collapsed onto her bed utterly exhausted. If someone had told her half a year ago that she would be training under the 5th Hokage, she would have laughed at them and told them to go get their brain checked. What a day, all she wanted was to take an afternoon nap that would last a whole week. She had started training with Tsunade today, the woman taking her under her wing as an apprentice. Any thought she had of getting special treatment was thrown out the window before the first 10 seconds had went by. She had talked with her shortly after she healed the crippled Rock Lee in a surgery that might have killed him, but they were successful and now he would be back to his youthful self, much to the delight of himself and Guy. After she had done that, she went up to her and asked if she could teach her to become a medic nin. She had wanted to get stronger and had pleaded with her to take her as an apprentice. Surprisingly, Tsunade decided to say yes, and she had told Kakashi, who agreed to it as he would be training Sasuke anyway. She was worn out and this was only the first day. A part of her dread what would happen tomorrow when they resumed. On the bright side, Tsunade did say she lasted longer than Shizune did on her first day. As she snuggled into the pillow, her thoughts went into why she decided to become an apprentice to one of the legendary Sannin. She had wanted to reunite Team 7 and make the bond between them stronger than it had been before. But after witnessing the fight between Sasuke and Naruto and how strong they had gotten, she knew she had no chance at her current state. So she sought out Tsunade and asked her to make her a pupil of hers and to teach her about the body and super strength as well as medic skills. She had learned from that pervert Jiraiya, who frequently visited the hot springs to spy on bathers, that Tsunade loved sake. She had managed to obtain, with the unsuspecting help of Ino, who she had tricked into helping her out, a rare bottle of sake to bribe her with. That, she thought, not the pleading, allowed her to become her pupil. She had quickly found out the hard way that Tsunade showed no mercy to anyone, even to her apprentice. Her whole body ached, but like they say, no pain no gain. If she was to succeed, she would have to endure it all. It'd be worth it if she can help make things better than they have been. Elsewhere, far from Konoha, far from Oto, there was another country. The land of Earth and its village, the hidden village of rocks, which was one of the 5 main ninja villages. The citizens of this mountainous region were a proud race, as long ago Earth was considered the mightiest in the land when the time of the ninja begun. Their first ruler was one of the most powerful ninjas in the world, able to hold his own against the first Hokage. His spirit and power were so mighty that he could destroy giant boulders by lightly tapping it, rip trees limb from limb with no effort, and survive weeks without food or water. He made a ruling stating that only those that possessed his blood in their veins can rule Earth. But his time faded and eventually the might of his blood weakened, and with it so did the land. His descendants did not have the same amount of power or fire as he did, and the decline of it had been sharp, much like summer into winter. The current ruler was a weakling. He had trouble making decisions on his own and was considered inept at best by the council, who were frustrated at the state Earth was in. Although he wore the armor, the first ruler, he barely possessed 1/10 of his will or power, so the decree by blood had ruined Earth, as they hadn't even sent any ninjas to the Chunin exams. There was even talk that it might be replaced by the new village Otogakur, the main 5. Right now a meeting was being held and there was much talking going on. We need to strengthen our borders. Have your eyes and ears gone deaf to the rest of the world? With every second our strengths weaken while others gain strength, said one man who had on violet robes and a hat that covered his short brown hair. He was clean-shaven and had calculating gray eyes as he stood up in the chamber. I agree with you, said the rock cage seated in his throne. No, first we must see that our mines can increase their profits, protested another. One of the few strengths of Earth was their mines. Had they made many weapons but usually sold them to other countries. I agree with you also, the rock cage said as well. Standing next to him was a large tall figure who shook his eyes in annoyance at his adopted father. The figure had on red and black clothing and carried a halberd as tall as he was. He was his father's bodyguard, having been adopted by him 5 years ago. One of the few smart things he did, as anyone would who desired the position of ruler, had to get past him, which halted anyone's ambition, especially the violet-dressed one. Though lately he had been getting irritated at his father's incompetence. Strong and full of power, he was the mightiest warrior in Earth who was unmatched. The man dressed in violet glared at the rock cage. The man had full silver body armor and had his face covered by a silver metal mask, as it was tradition for the ruler to wear it. How he wished to dispose of him, and show these fools that the right to rule didn't come from blood but by those who weren't the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the wisest. But the one with the most cunning. But unless he could find a way past his adopted son, he would find his head removed from his body. As the meeting continued, a figure was walking towards the doorway outside. The two guards saw him and gripped their weapons as he approached. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? The council's meeting in there." One asked him, but he ignored them and kept walking. "Get out of here, you can complain to him after everyone else has," warned the other one, bringing his sword up. The man didn't say anything. Instead, he raised a hand which had 4 rings on his fingers into a fist. As they continued to argue inside, they were interrupted by a loud explosion and the doorway being destroyed, with the 2 guards being thrown inside. The council and the rock cage looked on in shock as a figure stepped in. "What is the meaning of this? Guards, seize him," one council man shouted. The figure bowed and held up his hands, bidding them to hold their weapons. "I apologize for my interruptions, but the time has come for this village to raise up and reclaim its former glory," he said. "What madness is this?" shouted another council at him. "Wait, let us listen to his words," said the purple-dressed man, who was interested in what he was going to say. "My name is Kage Sosano. I am but a humble servant of my lord who wishes to weed out the weakness and corruption that has plagued this land for so long. I shall return this land its former place of power that it once had," he said to them as he looked at them all. "I only have one small price, that the current ruler of Earth steps down and surrenders the position of rock cage to me. And that the council disbands and swear their loyalty to me and my lord." "What?" shouted the rock cage, standing up in fury at his demands. "You dare make such demands? That I yield my position of power. Guards, execute him." Several ninjas appeared out of hiding place and surrounded him. He did not appear to be concerned though as he glanced around. The violet-dressed man looked on, wondering who was this stranger. The son of the rock cage also looked on as well, wondering what kind of fool gets himself surrounded so easily. "So, you have rejected my terms. Then all of you shall pay the price of your impudence with your lives," Kage said, and his rings gleamed in unison. Suddenly a purple light covered the area, and before any of them could do anything, when the light faded, many of the guards fell over dead. "What? Impossible!" shouted the rock cage in disbelief as looks of shock and horror were on the council's face. Before any of them could do anything, Kage fired blasts from his rings, hitting and killing them. The fools tried to run for their lives but were struck down by him as he slaughtered them like animals. One of the few guards tried to stop him but was killed by him before he could get close. He then killed the other guard by shooting a beam of fire at him, burning him to a crisp. The council tried to defend themselves but were no match as they were being killed off one by one. Suddenly the purple-dressed man realized he was the only one left and saw him looking at him. Simple logic ruled he was his next target. "I yield," he shouted, suddenly surprising all those still alive, and bowed, lowering his head in a surrendering position. "I, Shima-zun, surrender myself to you, Sosano-sama, and your lord, and will follow whatever you desire," he said, begging for his life. He looked up nervously and saw that he was still looking at him. He feared he was going to die when the ring wielder suddenly smirked and turned his attention elsewhere as if he was sparing him for the moment. "Shima-zun, you traitor!" shouted the rock cage in fury that he would betray him and save his own hide. He then turned to his adopted son. "Lu Xiang, I made you my own son after 17 years of living on your own. Repay the kindness I have given you by killing this fool," he shouted, pointing at Kage. Lu Xiang twirled his halberd and stepped forward, and Kage realized that this one might actually be challenging. The two stared eye to eye as neither backed down nor did they move. He suddenly felt something coming from him, something dark and powerful. It was intoxicating and at the same time creepy. He didn't understand what it was, but he was intrigued by it. This man wasn't some fool who had no clue what he was doing. He had power, the type of power that attracts others. His might was even stronger than his own. "What are you waiting for? Kill him. That's an order," the rock cage shouted, and he frowned in annoyance. He was getting really tired of having to do his dirty work. He looked at Kage and again felt that power. He wanted to know why he had such power. He went to swing his halberd at him when he suddenly turned around and took his adopted father's head off in one clean sweep. His head fell out of the mask and onto the ground, a look of shock and horror at his betrayal. "To think that a warrior of my stature and ability would have to be a lapdog to some bumbling fool," he said, and kicked the head away in disgust. He then looked up at Kage. "As far as I concerned, he was nothing but a maggot and now food for the maggots. But you, I can sense great power coming from you. I am intrigued in how. You are so powerful. Certainly stronger than all these fools combined. For now I shall wield my halberd for you. Lu Xiang said. So you chose to be loyal to me. Kage said to him. Until I figure out where your might comes from, then I might try to take your head. He responded. Very well then. And what of you? Kage said to Sima Zun, who walked forward towards them daringly. He appeared insignificant to them, but Kage knew better than to underestimate a person based on how they look. I too wish to aid you and swear my loyalty to you. He said and bowed. I am Sima Zun, the strategist of the now deceased Rock Kage, and I am now yours as well. With your powers and Lu Xiao's brawn and my brilliant brain, the land of earth shall rise again. No, Kage said, surprising them. My lord is not settled with one piece of the land. He desires all of it and I shall give it to him. You intend to conquer the entire land? Sima Zun said, a bit surprised. Are you a fool or a madman? Kage Sosano didn't answer but looked at the armor that was on the dead man and fired a blast from his rings, destroying the body but leaving the armor intact. He looked at it and decided it wasn't his style, and his rings glowed again and he fired a beam at the armor and metal mask. Soon the silver armor turned black and appeared more darker and eviler, and the mask's face turned into that of a demon to suit its new wearer. The changed armor then appeared on him, covering himself as he claimed the title of ruler of the land of earth. He held the mask, now shaped like the face of a demon, under his arm and looked at them. The age of Jashin has begun, he said, and then put the metal mask over his face, making his voice sound more ominous and deeper. And all who will bear witness to my lord's rule have two choices: accept it or pay with their lives. He then walked past them and the two could only look at one another. For Kage, the first part of his plan had succeeded. At Otogakure, Naruto was looking for a certain redhead when he managed to find her by hearing the sound of a flute being played. He came upon her location as she was seated on a large boulder in the forest playing her flute, apparently oblivious to her surroundings. He sat down next to her as he listened to her play. As he watched, he noticed a different side to her he had seen before. When in battle or a fight, she was like a raging sea, fierce and impossible to control. But out of it she was like a tranquil lake, calm and peaceful. After a couple of minutes passed, she stopped and opened her eyes and looked at him. Hey, Naruto. Hey to Yuya, nice to see you. He said to her. Haven't seen you a whole lot, she said as the two sat together. I've been working on important stuff, that's why I haven't seen you or the others very often. Naruto said to her. HMPH, well come on, let's take a walk, she said, getting off the boulder. He got off as well and joined her as the two went on a walk. The two walked for a good while and then came upon a river, and the two gazed upon it as the sun was starting to set. You know, the road ahead is going to be long as hell, Yuya said to him, and he turned his head to look at her. I guess so, with a lot of bumps and curves on it as well, he said, not really understanding her. A whole lot of morons walk the road of life. Some on their own and some with a whole lot of companions. She then looked at him and he caught on. Yeah, but some do it with the person they care about most. He then looked at the river and then backed at her and noticed she had turned her head away. She then felt a hand grasp her own and she looked at it and saw his own. A small blush covered her face as he was holding her hand. A smile was on Naruto's voice as he spoke. The road ahead is going to belong to Yuya, so let's travel it together, he said to her, and slowly she smiled at him as the two sound nins holding each other's hand. The two watched as the sun set as they were ready to travel on the road ahead and face whatever life had to throw at them.